They laughed when Commander Jake Harris stood before the Galactic Council and issued humanity's final warning. 23 species, thousands of years of spacefaring experience, and they treated Earth's ultimatum like a child's tantrum. The Krillian ambassador actually clicked his mandibles in amusement. But Jake didn't flinch. He simply placed a data crystal on the podium. Sealed, time-stamped, broadcast to every system in known space. 72 hours. Clear terms. Legal. Recorded. Binding. When he walked out of that chamber, the silence followed him like a shadow. 3 days later, the galaxy would learn why humans don't bluff. If you're enjoying stories like this on HFY Endurance Tales, hit that like button and subscribe. Because what comes next will redefine everything you thought you knew about warfare. Now let's move forward into the storm that humanity unleashed. Jake Harris had been a fleet intelligence officer for 12 years before they made him humanity's voice. He didn't want the diplomatic posting. He wanted to analyze patterns, predict movements, keep his people alive through information. But after the siege of Covenant Station, after he'd watched 3,000 civilians die because the hegemony decided human mining operations were encroaching on contested space, Command decided Earth needed someone who understood both war and words. The galactic hegemony was old, older than human history. 23 member species, all convinced that their age meant wisdom, their experience meant superiority. They'd welcomed humanity 50 years ago with condescending smiles and restrictive treaties. Humans could trade. Humans could settle specific zones. Humans could not arm beyond defensive parameters. Humans would respect established territorial claims, even when those claims shifted like sand. For 48 years, humanity complied, built, grew, learned. Then the hegemony started seizing human colonies in the outer reach, claiming administrative corrections and protection services. They took Covenant Station without warning. No evacuation, no negotiation, just plasma fire and 3,000 names added to Earth's memorial wall. Earth's government convened. The military presented options. Jake presented intelligence. 17 more human settlements were marked for administrative action in classified hegemony files he'd intercepted. The pattern was clear. This wasn't politics. This was the beginning of systematic displacement. Or worse. The diplomatic corps wanted another round of appeals. The military wanted immediate retaliation. Jake proposed something else. One final warning. Crystal clear. Legally unimpeachable. Delivered publicly, so the entire galaxy could witness it. Make them choose war. Make it their decision. Make it recorded history. The council chamber on Vorkal Prime was designed to humble. Crystalline walls rose 300 feet, reflecting light from 7 suns, visible through the transparent dome. The amphitheater could hold 10,000 delegates. When Jake walked to the podium, the quiet murmur of conversation didn't stop. They barely acknowledged him. He didn't mind. He'd learned that being underestimated was a tactical advantage. Members of the hegemony, Jake began, his voice steady and clear. I am Commander Jake Harris, acting envoy of the United Earth Coalition. I stand before you to deliver formal notification under Galactic Convention Article 12, Notice of Consequence. That got some attention. Article 12 was archaic, almost never invoked. It was the treaty provision that allowed preemptive military response if specific legal criteria were met and documented. The Krillian ambassador clicked his mandibles, laughter at his species. Humans presume much. Your colony violated proximity accords. Covenant Station was established 14 years before the hegemony's revised territorial claim, Jake interrupted. His tone didn't rise. Under Convention Article 7, established settlements have primacy. You know this. Your legal teams know this. You proceeded anyway. Murmurs now. Not all dismissive. Jake placed the data crystal on the podium. This crystal contains evidence of 17 additional human settlements, designated for forcible seizure in classified hegemony planning documents. It contains the names of military units assigned to those operations. It contains communications confirming that civilian casualties are expected and considered acceptable. The chamber went quieter. Under Article 12, we are providing 72 hours notice. If any further hostile action is taken against human settlements, if any additional human civilian is harmed by hegemony forces, the United Earth Coalition will consider the hegemony's actions a declaration of war. Our response will be immediate, proportional, and documented. This crystal has been transmitted simultaneously to every system in known space. This is not a threat. This is a legal notification. The choice is yours. He left the crystal on the podium, walked out, didn't look back. Behind him, the Krillian ambassador addressed the chamber. Does Earth truly believe it can threaten the combined might of 23 species? Let them come. Let us teach these upstart primates the cost of arrogance. The hegemony would not alter its operations based on human demands. Jake received the transmission 6 hours later. He was already aboard the UEC Vigilant, humanity's newest command carrier, positioned at the edge of the neutral belt. He read the vote results, closed his eyes for just a moment. Then he opened the secure channel to Earth Command. They've made their choice. Execute Protocol Nightfall. Across human space, 73 ships began moving into position. Every captain had their orders. Every crew had trained for this. Every member of humanity's military had watched the memorial wall grow, name by name, and understood that restraint had limits. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans stopped warning and started teaching. In the Hegemony High Command on Vorkal Prime, strategic analyst Vel Shara, a luminar with bioluminescent markings that pulsed when she experienced strong emotions, reviewed the human warning again. She'd studied Earth military doctrine as part of her role. Nothing in her analysis suggested they had the capability to challenge even a fraction of hegemony forces. But her markings pulsed amber anyway. Uncertainty. She flagged the file as requiring additional surveillance. 20 hours later, her markings would burn bright red. Warning. Danger. Too late. Because the human fleet hadn't jumped into hegemony space. They'd already been there for 3 weeks. Waiting. The hegemony learned about Protocol Nightfall the way most victims learn about ambushes, when the trap closes. Jake stood in the Vigilance Command Center, watching tactical displays update in real time. The room was quiet, except for the soft ping of data feeds and the low murmur of officers coordinating fleet movements. No music, no dramatic announcements. Professional military operations didn't work that way. Status, Jake said quietly. All units in position, Commander. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen reported from Tactical. Stealth packages maintained. Enemy pattern matches projections. They're proceeding exactly as the documents indicated. Of course they were. The hegemony was old, comfortable, predictable. They'd been the dominant power for so long that innovation had become unnecessary. Their formations hadn't changed in a century. Their logistics routes were public knowledge, mapped in trade registries. Their military doctrine prioritized overwhelming force over tactical creativity. They never fought humans before. Jake had spent 3 months studying hegemony warfare. Not their propaganda, not their official histories. He'd analyzed their actual combat records, obtained through intelligence operations he'd never be able to discuss publicly. What he found was interesting. They were excellent at fighting wars against enemies who fought the same way they did. Ship-to-ship engagement, direct assault, predictable escalation. They'd never faced an opponent who treated information as a weapon more powerful than plasma. Hegemony Battle Group 7 is entering the Kepler Belt, Chen updated. 3 carriers, 14 cruisers, 32 escorts. Target: New Providence Colony. New Providence. Population: 42,000. Mining operation: schools, families. The hegemony had classified it as minimal resistance expected, acceptable civilian displacement parameters. Jake's jaw tightened. Execute option mercy. 3 human ships, frigates, fast and maneuverable, broke stealth. They didn't engage the hegemony fleet. Instead, they transmitted on every frequency. Attention New Providence. This is UEC Rescue Command. Civilian evacuation is mandatory. You have 4 hours. Emergency transports inbound. Move to designated rally points. This is not a drill. The Hegemony Task Force altered course immediately, accelerating toward New Providence. They assumed the 3 human ships were the threat. They were wrong. Hegemony fleet is committing, Chen reported. They're going full burn. Formation is fragmenting. Jake nodded. Aggressive pursuit. Exactly as projected. Detonate packages Alpha through Gamma. For 3 weeks, small human infiltration teams have been planting sensor nets and tactical packages throughout this sector. Not weapons, information systems. When they activated, the hegemony's tactical awareness went dark. Communication disrupted. Navigation markers spoofing false positions. Sensor returns showing phantom ships. In the chaos, the hegemony fleet rushed forward and ran straight into a debris field that shouldn't have existed. Debris that human engineers had carefully positioned across their projected course. Not enough to destroy ships, enough to force emergency maneuvers, enough to create collisions, enough to turn a coordinated battle group into a scattered cluster of damaged vessels trying to re-establish formation. Civilian evacuation 70% complete, Chen reported. Hegemony fleet regaining sensor function. There, she paused. Commander, they're launching planetary bombardment. Even scattered, even damaged, the hegemony ships were preparing to fire on New Providence before the evacuation finished. Deploy the package, Jake said quietly. The Vigilant had been holding position 2 light minutes away, far beyond detection range. Now it jumped, not into combat range, but into broadcast position. Every transmitter on the ship activated, flooding hegemony command frequencies with a single message. This is Commander Jake Harris of the United Earth Coalition. Under Galactic Convention Article 14, we are documenting your attack on civilian populations during active evacuation operations. All evidence will be submitted to the neutral court. Fire on those colonists, and you will be designated war criminals. Every captain, every officer, your names, your faces, your families will know what you did here. The choice is yours. For 93 seconds, nothing happened. Then the hegemony bombardment sequence shut down. Jake released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Continue evacuation. Commander, Chen said softly, they're really backing down? For now. Jake pulled up tactical displays showing 19 other human settlements under threat. Because they don't understand yet. They think this was luck. They think we can't sustain this. They'll regroup. They'll come harder. What do we do then? Jake's expression was grim. We teach them that humans don't fight wars the way they expect. We don't match ship for ship. We don't play by their rules. We make them choose between victory and who they are. And if they choose victory anyway, he paused, then we show them what total warfare actually looks like. Over the next 48 hours, the pattern repeated across human space. Hegemony forces moved to seize settlements. Human forces didn't engage directly. Instead, they evacuated civilians, destroyed infrastructure the hegemony wanted to capture, mined approach vectors, broadcast evidence of war crimes, turned every engagement into a political disaster. The hegemony won 0 objectives, lost 18 ships to accidents, debris strikes, and internal collisions, captured 0 territory, and faced growing dissent within their own coalition as member species started questioning whether this war was worth the cost. On Vorkal Prime, Velshara worked through the night, her bioluminescent markings flickering yellow, intense concentration. She'd compiled every engagement report, analyzed every human tactic, built a profile that made her deeply uncomfortable. Finally, she requested emergency audience with High Command. The humans are not fighting to win territory, she told the assembled military leadership. Her voice was blunt. Her species didn't understand social deception. They're fighting to make winning impossible for us. Every engagement costs us resources and political capital. They're not trying to defeat our military. They're trying to break our coalition. The Krillian military commander clicked dismissively. They have 73 ships. We have thousands. This is temporary embarrassment. Once we commit proper forces, they warned us, Velshara interrupted. Her markings pulsed red. Their warning was precise, legal, documented. They gave us every opportunity to choose peace. They did everything correctly, and we mocked them. Analyst recommendation: accept their terms before they escalate further. Escalate? The Krillian commander's laughter was chittering and harsh. What escalation? They're running, hiding, using tricks instead of fighting. Velshara's markings went dark. Commander, when a species gives you a legal warning before war, documents every action, and fights with perfect restraint while systematically achieving their objectives, they're not showing you their limits. They're showing you their mercy. I recommend we do not test what comes after mercy ends. The Command Council voted unanimously to reject her recommendation. They would commit a full battle fleet, 300 ships, to crush human resistance, once and for all. The assault would target Earth itself. Velshara submitted her resignation the same day. They accepted it, transferred her to prisoner logistics, a meaningless post, far from strategic decisions. She didn't mind. And somewhere deep in her analytical mind, she understood. She'd just been moved out of the line of fire. Because when humans stopped being restrained, when they stopped offering mercy, when they finally unleashed what they'd been holding back, Velshara didn't want to be anywhere near Hegemony High Command. Jake received intelligence about the Hegemony's fleet deployment 6 hours before it launched. He stood in the Vigilance War Room, studying the numbers. 300 ships, 40,000 crew, all aimed at Earth. We can't evacuate Earth, Chen said quietly beside him. 11 billion people, nowhere to go. I know. Jake pulled up Earth's defensive grid, 12 orbital platforms, 48 defense stations, maybe 100 ships total. Even with every tactical advantage, the math didn't work. Not against 300 warships. Unless the math wasn't about ships at all. Chen, recall all dispersed units to Rally Point Omega, and send a transmission to Hegemony High Command. Single message, no encryption. He paused. Tell them, last chance, turn back, or learn why humans are terrified of themselves. Chen's eyes widened. Sir, that's a warning, Jake finished quietly. One more, because once this starts, there's no going back. Not for them, not for us. Make sure they understand, we tried. The message transmitted, reached Vorkal Prime, was read by command staff, and dismissed as desperation. The Hegemony fleet jumped toward Earth, and Jake gave the order that would change galactic history. Release Protocol Endgame. Full authorization. No restrictions. Across human space, sealed orders opened. Ships that had been holding position began moving. Weapon systems that hadn't existed in any public documentation powered up. And every human military officer understood the restraint was over. Now the galaxy would see what humans built when they knew war was coming. What they'd hidden for 50 years. What they'd hoped they'd never have to use. The Hegemony fleet was 3 jumps from Earth when their sensors detected something impossible. Human ships were appearing. Not dozens. Hundreds. Where had they? Then they saw the manufacturing dates. These weren't new ships. They were old ships. Earth had been building warships in secret for 30 years. Hiding them in asteroid belts, in gas giant atmospheres, in deep space caches. While they smiled and signed treaties and accepted restrictions, they'd been preparing for this exact scenario. Because humans had studied history, knew what happened to species that trusted promises more than preparation. The hegemony had 300 ships. Humanity revealed 412. And unlike hegemony vessels designed for traditional warfare, human ships were built for one purpose: to kill things much larger than themselves. In the Vigilance Command Center, Jake watched the tactical display update, watched the hegemony fleet's momentum falter, watched their formations scatter as they realized they'd walked into a killing field. He opened a channel, broadcast to every hegemony ship. "This is Commander Harris. Final offer. Surrender now. Power down weapons. Submit to tribunal. You'll be treated according to Galactic Convention. Or continue toward Earth. Your choice. You have 30 seconds. The hegemony fleet commander's response was immediate and defiant. "Humanity will burn for this deception." 29 seconds, Jake interrupted. His voice was cold now, empty. "I tried. Remember that I tried." The timer reached 0, and the United Earth Coalition stopped offering mercy. What happened next wasn't warfare. It was systematic dismantlement. Human ships moved in coordinated patterns, targeting engines, not crew compartments, broadcasting surrender terms after every strike, documenting every moment, offering escape pods quarter, treating captured prisoners with precise correctness according to galactic law. They weren't fighting to kill. They were fighting to teach, to demonstrate, to prove beyond any doubt that humanity hadn't started this war, but they would end it. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it finished, the hegemony fleet had lost 93 ships destroyed, 201 captured, 6 escaped. Human casualties, 47 dead, 312 wounded, 8 ships lost. And across the galaxy, every species watched the footage, saw how humans fought, saw their restraint, even in overwhelming victory, saw their mercy, even toward enemies who'd shown them none, saw what a species looked like when they'd warned you, given you every chance, and then stopped asking permission to defend themselves. In a prison transport heading back to Vorkal Prime, Valshara sat with other captured hegemony personnel. Her markings pulsed in complex patterns: confusion, respect, fear, something else she couldn't quite name. A human medical officer approached her. Young, female, tired but professional. "Ma'am, we need to check your biosigns. Standard POW protocol. Do you consent?" Valshara's markings pulsed blue. They were asking, even now, even as prisoners, yes. Question: why did you hide your fleet strength? The medic paused, considering. Because we hoped we wouldn't need it. We wanted peace, really wanted it. Building those ships, it took resources we could have used for hospitals, schools, research. But our history taught us, hope for peace, prepare for war. Your hegemony chose wrong. We're sorry about that. You're sorry? Valshara's markings went amber. You won, decisively. Doesn't mean we wanted to. The medic completed her scans. All right, you're cleared. Get some rest. Water and rations are in your quarters. You need anything? Hit the call button. Someone will come. As the medic left, Valshara sat in the quiet of the transport. Around her, other prisoners whispered, frightened, uncertain. But none of them were mistreated. None threatened. None harmed. And Valshara understood with absolute clarity, humanity had been holding back. Not because they were weak. Because they were terrified of what they could become. They'd warned the hegemony for a reason. They'd given every chance to avoid this for a reason. Because once they started, once they unleashed what they were really capable of, the real question wasn't whether humans could win. It was whether they could stop. and as the transport jumped toward Vorkal Prime, as Velshara contemplated the ruins of hegemony arrogance, one thought dominated her mind. What comes next? If you're still watching this story on HFY Endurance Tales, drop a comment below, because the real test of humanity's character is just beginning. The Hegemony Council convened an emergency session 36 hours after the Battle of Earth. Jake watched the proceedings via secured transmission from the Vigilant. The chamber was different now. Subdued, tense. No one laughed. The Krillian ambassador spoke first. We face a military crisis. Human forces are more capable than assessed. However, we retain significant numerical advantage. Member species contributing additional fleets? No. The voice came from the Luminar delegation. Velshara's replacement, a senior analyst named Kethfor. His markings were deep red. Warning. The Luminar Collective withdraws from military operations against humanity, effective immediately. We have reviewed engagement data. Human strategic doctrine prioritizes political isolation of opponents. Every action they take is documented, legally defensible, and designed to fragment coalitions. Continuing this war will destroy the hegemony from within, regardless of military outcome. The chamber erupted. 3 more species declared immediate withdrawal. 2 more demanded emergency negotiation. The coalition was fracturing exactly as Jake had planned. But Jake didn't smile. Because he understood something, the celebrating human crews didn't. Winning battles meant nothing if the hegemony regime survived. They'd rebuild, rearm, return. The only way to secure lasting peace was to make the hegemony's leadership face consequences so severe that future aggression became unthinkable. That required something darker than military victory. It required justice. Jake composed a message to Earth Command. We need to proceed to Phase 2. Recommend tribunal preparation, full evidence disclosure. Target Hegemony High Command, specifically those who authorize civilian attacks. The response came from Admiral Janet Kowalski, Earth's senior military commander. Proceed, but Harris, keep it clean. We win the moral high ground, we win everything. We start looking like conquerors, we lose support. Understood? Understood. Jake closed the channel and turned to Chen. Get me a secure line to the Luminar Collective. I need to speak with Velshara. Sir, she's a POW. Which means she's seen everything, and her species values truth over loyalty. Jake pulled up her file. She tried to warn them. They silenced her. I want her to testify, voluntarily. Chen hesitated. You're building a war crimes case. No. I'm building documentation so complete that history has no choice about who the villains were. Jake met her eyes. We didn't start this. We gave them every chance. Now we finish it, the right way. Courts, evidence, justice, not revenge. The message reached Velshara in her quarters aboard the transport. She read it 3 times. A human commander was offering her the opportunity to testify against her own government. Under oath, in neutral court, with full legal protection. Her markings cycled through colors rapidly. She'd expected execution or imprisonment. Or at worst, repatriation under shameful conditions. Instead, they were offering her a platform, a voice, justice. She composed her response carefully. I will testify. I have evidence. Commands ignored. Warnings suppressed. Civilian targeting authorized knowingly. I will provide everything. One question. Why trust me? Jake's response was immediate. Because you tried to stop this. That matters. Velshara's markings went pure white, her species' expression of profound respect. She would testify. And she would bring down the commanders who'd led her people into this disaster. The next 72 hours were frantic diplomacy. Jake coordinated with the neutral court, an independent judicial body established centuries ago to handle disputes between star nations. Human legal teams worked around the clock, preparing evidence packages. Vel Shara underwent intensive interviews, her testimony recorded and verified. And across hegemony space, military commanders who'd authorized attacks on civilian targets began to understand what was coming. Some tried to flee. Human intelligence tracked them, shared their locations with neutral court enforcement, offered assistance in apprehension. Every action documented, every step legal. 3 of the commanders chose differently. They surrendered directly to human forces, requesting protection from hegemony retaliation. Jake granted their requests, and ensured they testified as well. The evidence pile grew enormous. Classified documents, communications logs, tactical orders explicitly authorizing civilian casualties, financial records showing resource projections based on displacing human populations. And at the center of it all, the data crystal Jake had placed on the council podium. The warning everyone had ignored. The proof that humanity had done everything correctly. On the 96th hour after the Battle of Earth, the neutral court issued indictments against 17 hegemony high command officers, including 3 council members. The charges: war crimes, targeting civilians, violations of Galactic Convention Articles 7, 12, and 18. The galaxy's reaction was immediate and polarized. Some species applauded, others claimed human manipulation, but no one could dispute the evidence. Jake received a private message from Admiral Kowalski. Good work. Now the hard part. Some of the indicted commanders still have loyal forces. They might try something desperate. Stay alert. In a bunker deep beneath Vorkal Prime's surface, 3 of the indicted commanders met in secret. They'd lost the war, lost public support, faced lifetime imprisonment or execution. But they still controlled assets. The humans think they've won, the Krillian military commander hissed. They think justice matters. They think courts matter. We'll show them what matters. Power, fear, consequences. What are you proposing? The second commander, a Velkorian named Thane, was more cautious. We have limited resources. Human fleet is still mobilized. We don't need to defeat their fleet. The Krillian pulled up a tactical display. We need to make them understand that prosecuting us has costs. I propose Operation Final Message. We take 1 human colony, something significant, something populated, and we demonstrate that mercy is weakness. Civilians are leverage, and justice is a luxury they can't afford. The third commander, a Forian female named Sekval, studied the display. You're suggesting genocide. I'm suggesting negotiating position. We hold a colony hostage. Demand amnesty. If they refuse, we demonstrate commitment. They'll accept terms rather than watch millions die. It was insane, desperate, monstrous. They voted unanimously to proceed. Their target, Liberty Station. Population 300,000. Vulnerable. Symbolic. It was humanity's first colony beyond Earth's solar system. The place where human interstellar civilization began. The rogue hegemony force, 73 ships, all that remained loyal to the indicted commanders, prepared to jump. They'd destroy Liberty Station's orbital defenses, hold the population hostage, make humanity choose between justice and lives. What they didn't know, human intelligence had been monitoring their communications, every meeting, every plan, every authorization code. Jake received the alert while sleeping, was awake and moving within seconds. Chen, get me a direct line to Liberty Station. Emergency alert. Population evacuation priority alpha. Sir, there are 300,000 civilians. We can't evacuate that many in time. We can't evacuate them all, Jake corrected quietly. But we can evacuate most. Enough that when this rogue force arrives, the hostage situation they're planning becomes ineffective. He pulled up deployment orders. And then we teach them one final lesson. Humanity doesn't negotiate with hostage takers. Not ever. not even when the cost is high. The evacuation began immediately. Merchant ships, military transports, private vessels, everything capable of jump drive moved toward Liberty Station. It was chaos. Organized, desperate, efficient chaos. They managed to evacuate 273,000 people. 27,000 remained, too old, too sick, too stubborn, or simply unable to reach transports in time. Jake sat in his command chair, watching the countdown. The rogue hegemony force would arrive in 19 minutes. 27,000 humans were still on Liberty Station. Many would die if this went wrong. But Jake understood the calculation. If he negotiated now, hostage-taking became a viable strategy. Every future conflict would involve civilian leverage. Millions would die in future wars because he'd been soft today. Sometimes the moral choice wasn't about minimizing immediate harm. It was about precedent, about what you taught the galaxy was acceptable. He opened a channel to the rogue hegemony commanders, broadcast publicly so every species would witness this moment. This is Commander Jake Harris. We know your plan. We've evacuated most of Liberty Station. Your hostage situation is compromised. You have one chance. Surrender immediately, submit to tribunal, and the remaining civilians live. Or proceed with your attack. Your choice. But understand, if one civilian dies because of your actions, I will hunt every one of you. Every officer, every crew member, across every system, for however long it takes. Not as military operation, as criminal pursuit. You will spend the rest of your lives running from courts, bounty hunters, and the families of the people you murdered. This is not negotiation. This is warning. Last one you'll get. Decide now. Silence on the channel. Then the Krillian commander's response. You bluff. You care too much about your people, about laws, about being righteous. We will show you the cost of... Jake cut the transmission. Turned to Chen. Deploy the package. Liberty Station wasn't defenseless. Couldn't be, not in this scenario. For 3 weeks, human engineering teams had been installing something extraordinary into the station's infrastructure. Not weapons. Something worse. A full system override. Every door, every bulkhead, every environmental control, all slaved to a single command center aboard the Vigilant. When the rogue hegemony force arrived and began their attack, they found the station's defenses stronger than anticipated. But they persevered, breached the outer hull, sent boarding parties to seize key facilities, and round up civilians for broadcast executions. And that's when Jake activated the override. Every door in sections where hegemony troops operated sealed simultaneously. Life support in those sections isolated. Gravity disabled. The invaders found themselves trapped in compartments filling with suppressant foam, non-lethal, but completely incapacitating. Meanwhile, the 27,000 remaining civilians were in sections that remained fully operational, safe behind security barriers the invading force couldn't breach from their trapped positions. The entire boarding operation neutralized in 14 minutes. 0 civilian casualties. 643 hegemony troops captured, and the galaxy watched footage of it all, broadcast in real time, showing exactly how prepared humanity had been. Showing the trap, the perfect counter. A message, you can't win by targeting our civilians. We've thought of everything. The rogue fleet withdrew in chaos. 12 ships self-destructed rather than face capture. Human forces pursued methodically, broadcasting surrender terms, taking prisoners, treating captured crews with legal correctness. Within 48 hours, all 3 rogue commanders were in custody. Jake stood in the Liberty Station command center, looking out at the 300,000 civilians who'd been evacuated and were now returning home. Families reuniting, children crying in relief, elderly colonists laughing at their narrow escape. Chen approached quietly. We did it. Clean, legal, perfect. Not perfect, Jake corrected. 27,000 people spent 6 hours thinking they might die. That's trauma we can't erase. He turned to her. But we proved something today. Proved that doing things the right way, courts, laws, restraint, doesn't mean being weak. It means being strong enough to win without compromising who you are. You think the galaxy understands that? Jake gestured at the displays, showing galactic news feeds. Every major network was covering Liberty Station. The commentary was almost universally favorable. 3 more hegemony species had announced withdrawal from the coalition. The remaining leadership was in political freefall. They're starting to, Jake said quietly. Now we finish it. The tribunal convened on neutral ground, a space station maintained by the neutral court in unclaimed space. Jake attended as Earth's representative. Velshara testified for 3 days, her bioluminescent markings steady white, truth. Other witnesses followed, human survivors, captured hegemony officers turned state's evidence. The documentation was overwhelming. The 3 rogue commanders tried to argue military necessity, self-defense, ambiguous law. The judges weren't impressed. Neither was the gallery, which included representatives from 47 different species, all watching, all taking notes. On the 7th day, the court delivered its verdict. Guilty. All 17 defendants. Sentences ranged from 20 years to life imprisonment. No executions. Humanity had argued for proportional justice, not revenge. The Krillian commander was led from the courtroom in restraints. As he passed Jake, he hissed quietly, "You've made enemies. This isn't over." Jake met his eyes calmly. "For you it is. You'll spend your life in a cell, and every day you'll remember, we warned you. We gave you every chance. You chose this." The commander had no response. That evening, Jake sat alone in his quarters, reviewing casualty reports. 47 dead at the Battle of Earth. 12 lost in scattered skirmishes. 59 names added to humanity's memorial wall. Every one of them preventable. If the hegemony had listened, if they'd chosen peace. But they hadn't. And now the galaxy understood. Humanity could be kind, could be patient, could follow laws and honor treaties and give warning after warning, right up until you made them stop asking permission to survive. A message came through from Velshara, now living in protective custody on Earth. Simple, direct. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for justice. My people will remember this." Jake composed his response. "Tell them this too. Humanity meant every warning. Still does. We'll defend ourselves, but we'd rather be friends. The offer stands, for everyone." He sent the message and closed his eyes. The war was ending. The justice was done. But the real work, building lasting peace, making sure this never happened again, that was just beginning. Share this story with anyone who needs to understand why justice matters more than victory, because humanity just proved it's possible to have both. The tribunal's verdict rippled through hegemony space like a shockwave. Within 72 hours, the political structure that had governed galactic affairs for millennia began collapsing. 4 more species formally withdrew from the coalition. 6 others demanded leadership reforms. 2 internal coups were attempted, both failures, but the instability was undeniable. Jake received emergency briefings hourly. Each one painted the same picture. The hegemony was dying, and dying governments were dangerous. "Commander, we're tracking significant military movements in Sector 9, Chen reported, her voice tight with tension. 37 ships just broke formation from hegemony defensive perimeter, heading toward neutral space. Jake studied the tactical display. Identification? Mixed allegiance. Some are defecting to join coalition governments. But 12 ships, they're heading toward the old war fleets, the forgotten ones. Jake's blood went cold. Ancient, hegemony military units stationed in deep space during previous wars and never fully decommissioned. Automated defensive platforms, weapon caches, Doomsday options built by paranoid governments centuries ago and left dormant. They're going to activate them, Jake said quietly. If they can't have power, they'll burn everything down. Can they actually access those systems? If they have the right authorization codes, yes. Jake pulled up historical records. The old fleets were designed as extinction-level deterrents, full autonomous warfare protocols, no human oversight, well, no organic oversight. They were built to kill everything in designated target zones. Chen's face went pale. How many are we talking about? Records show at minimum 300 dormant warships, possibly more, scattered across 20 systems. If they activate even a fraction, Jake didn't finish, didn't need to. What do we do? Get me a secure channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. And someone find out if Velshara knows anything about old hegemony military protocols. She's our best analyst on their historical systems. The response from Velshara came within minutes. Her message was characteristically blunt. Old warfleets controlled by Core Authority Network, centralized AI coordinator, located in Vorkal Prime's deepest military bunker. Activation requires 3 high command authorization codes. You stopped 2 commanders at Liberty Station. Third is still at large, Admiral Kreshtar. Varelian species. Last seen fleeing towards Sector 9. She paused, then added, if he reaches Core Authority and activates old fleets, casualty projections, billions, possibly trillions, he must be stopped before interface. Jake read the message twice. Billions, trillions. This wasn't military conflict anymore. This was potential extinction event. He opened a channel to Admiral Kowalski. Ma'am, we have a crisis. I need authorization for deep penetration operation into Vorkal Prime. Target, their Core Authority Network. Time sensitive, possibly minutes, not hours. Then, Kowalski's voice. Careful. Harris, you're talking about invading the hegemony capital world. During peace negotiations. That's an act of war. No, ma'am. It's an act of prevention. They're about to activate weapons that don't distinguish between military and civilian targets. We stop this now, or we're looking at galactic catastrophe. I need 6 hours. 1 team. Full authorization. Another pause. Who's leading the team? I am. Harris? I started this. I'll finish it. Jake's voice was steady. Besides, I know the layout, studied every inch of that command structure during intelligence prep. I can do this, but I need authorization, now. You get caught, it destroys everything we built. Every bit of moral authority, every alliance. If I don't go, billions die. I'll take the political cost. Kowalski exhaled slowly. 6 hours. You're not there. If you're captured, we disavow. Clear. Harris out. Jake turned to his command staff. I need a volunteer strike team. 6 operators. Best we have. Mission profile. Hostile insertion. Locate and neutralize a fleeing war criminal. Prevent activation of doomsday weapons. Extract without international incident. No margin for error. Who's interested? Every officer in the room stepped forward. Jake selected 6, Chen included, because she'd studied hegemony computer systems and might be able to shut down the Core Authority if they couldn't stop Kreshtar in time. The team assembled in the Vigilance launch bay within 20 minutes. Light armor. No Earth insignia. If they were caught, this had to be deniable. The insertion craft was a modified scout ship. Fast, stealthy, equipped with hegemony transponder codes that Jake had acquired through intelligence operations he'd never discuss officially. They launched toward Vorkal Prime under full stealth protocols. Jake spent the time reviewing building schematics, approach vectors, security protocols. Chen sat across from him, running probability simulations on her portable terminal. What are our odds? Jake asked quietly. Of getting in? 80%. Of stopping Kreshtar? 60%. Of getting out? She paused. 37%, maybe. Jake nodded. I'll take those odds. Commander Jake. Chen looked up. If this goes wrong, I want you to know, serving under you, seeing how you handled all this, it's been an honor. Don't talk like we're not making it out, Chen. We stop this bastard. We save billions. We go home and let the politicians clean up the mess. Understood? She smiled faintly. Understood. The insertion was perfect. They slipped past orbital defenses, using spoofed identification codes, landed in an industrial district 3 kilometers from the military complex, and moved through the city on foot. Vorkal Prime was in chaos. Protests, riots, security forces overwhelmed, trying to maintain order. The team slipped through unnoticed. The military bunker was different. Heavily guarded. Automated defense systems. 3 separate security checkpoints. Jake led them through maintenance tunnels that weren't on official maps, but had shown up in intelligence reports. They encountered 2 guard patrols, both subdued quietly. No lethal force. Jake insisted on that. Even now, even here, they did this right. They reached the Core Authority Chamber 43 minutes after landing, and found Admiral Kreshtar already at the control interface. His 3 authorization codes entered, the ancient system powering up. Don't move. Jake's weapon was up, aimed center mass. Step away from that console. Kreshtar turned slowly. The Varelian was massive, 3 meters tall, 4 arms, each ending in manipulators capable of crushing human bones. His expression was unreadable, but his body language suggested calm amusement. Commander Harris, I watched your tribunal. Impressive theater, but ultimately meaningless. He gestured at the console. This is real power. The ability to end species, end worlds, end defiance. You activate that system, you murder billions of innocents, your own people included. My people? Kreshtar's laugh was bitter. My people convicted me, humiliated me, destroyed everything I built. For what? Because I made hard decisions? Because I understood that survival requires strength, not sentiment. He leaned toward the console. You want to negotiate? Here are my terms. Full amnesty for all hegemony commanders. Immediate withdrawal of human forces from all contested systems. Public apology for your interference in hegemony affairs. Or I activate these fleets, and we all learn what extinction looks like. You do this, you prove everything we said about the hegemony. That you were never the civilized elders of galactic society. Just bullies with technology. Perhaps, but we'll be dead bullies, and so will you, and billions more. Kreshtar's hand moved toward the activation control. Decide, Commander. Justice or survival. Can't have both. Jake's finger tightened on the trigger. Clean shot. Center mass. 1 pull, and Kreshtar died before completing activation. But Jake hesitated. Because killing an unarmed prisoner, even to prevent catastrophe, even when justified, that changed who you were. Changed what you represented. In that half-second of hesitation, Kreshtar lunged for the control. Chen moved faster. Her weapon fired, not at Kreshtar, but at the console. The targeting was perfect, drilled through control circuits, severed power connections. The activation sequence died, with a screech of electronic failure. Jake fired twice. Leg shots, not lethal. The massive Varelian crashed down, injured but alive. Secure him, Jake ordered. His team moved immediately. Restraints applied, wound treatment administered. Chen examined the console. It's fried. Activation is impossible now. We'd need 3 weeks and factory parts to restore functionality. Jake nodded slowly. Good. Excellent work, Chen. She met his eyes. You were going to let him do it, weren't you, rather than kill him? I was going to find another way. Looks like you found it first. Jake pulled out his communicator. This is Harris. Target secured. Core authority neutralized. Beginning extraction. But as the team prepared to leave, alarms throughout the bunker began wailing. Security had detected them. Move, Jake shouted. They ran through corridors, heading for their extraction point. Behind them, hegemony security forces mobilized. Weapons fire echoed through the complex. Jake's team returned fire. Suppression only, no casualties when avoidable. They reached the maintenance tunnel. 50 meters. 20. Almost there. Then the tunnel entrance exploded. Debris rained down. They were cut off. Alternative routes? Jake demanded. None that don't go through main security, Chen replied, checking her maps. We're trapped. Through the smoke, a figure emerged. Not hegemony security, Velshara, accompanied by 6 Luminar soldiers. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed urgent blue. Commander Harris, we intercepted security communications. We're here to help. Your what? Jake stared. How? Luminar government granted asylum to human operatives caught during righteous mission to prevent catastrophe. Officially, this is rescue operation of allied personnel. Unofficially, Velshara's markings flickered with something that might have been humor. We're ensuring humans don't take all credit for saving galaxy. Luminar forces assisted. History will remember. Now move, before politics becomes irrelevant. They followed her through corridors Jake didn't recognize. Past security checkpoints where Luminar credentials opened doors. Out through diplomatic exits where guards stepped aside for Velshara's rank. They reached the extraction craft without further incident. As the ship lifted off, heading for orbit, Jake sat in the passenger bay next to Velshara. You didn't have to do this. Risk your career, your life. Yes, she replied simply. I did, because someone taught me that doing right thing matters more than following orders. Wonder who that was. Jake smiled faintly. Thank you. Don't thank yet. Wait until we survive debrief. But her markings pulsed warm amber, affection, respect. The craft cleared atmosphere, jumped to safety. Mission complete. And Jake finally allowed himself to believe. Maybe they'd actually won. Not just battles, not just wars, but something bigger. The right to build whatever came next. But as the Vigilant came into view, Chen pointed at her tactical display. Commander, we have incoming transmission. Priority emergency. Hegemony remnant forces are mobilizing. Last-ditch effort. They're heading straight for Earth. Every available ship. 372 vessels. ETA, 18 hours. Jake closed his eyes. Of course, it couldn't be over yet, because winning clean, winning right was never easy. Get me Admiral Kowalski, he said quietly, and prep the fleet. Time to finish this, for real this time. The final battle was coming, and this time, there would be no warnings, no mercy, no hesitation, just the end. The briefing room aboard the Vigilant was packed. Every department head, every senior officer, every specialist who might contribute to the defense of Earth. Jake stood at the head of the table, exhausted but focused. Intel assessment, he began without preamble. The Hegemony Remnant fleet is 372 ships. Mixed capabilities. 30% are cruiser class or heavier. They're led by a coalition of hardliners who refuse to accept the tribunal verdict. Their objective is simple. Strike Earth, cripple humanity's political center, force a negotiated settlement that reverses everything we've accomplished. Admiral Kowalski appeared via holographic projection. Commander Harris has tactical command for this engagement. Every human ship within jump range is being recalled to Earth's defensive perimeter. Current count, 481 vessels. We have numerical advantage. But make no mistake, this will be the bloodiest fight of the war. Jake pulled up tactical displays. The Remnant fleet knows they can't win a prolonged engagement. They're going for overwhelming first strike. Likely strategy: penetrate to orbit, threaten planetary bombardment, force surrender under duress. We stop them before they get that far. How? Someone asked. By making them pay for every meter of space. Jake highlighted key positions on the display. We set up 3 defensive lines. First line, harassment force, 30 fast frigates. Your job is to slow them down, identify high-value targets, fall back under fire. Second line, heavy engagement, 200 ships. This is where we break their formation, force them to commit resources to defense rather than offense. Third line, orbital platforms and remaining fleet. This is our final stand. They don't get past it. Chen spoke up. What about civilian evacuation? Already underway, Kowalski replied. Every transport we have is moving non-essential personnel off Earth. But we have 11 billion people. We can evacuate maybe 30 million in 18 hours. The rest, she paused, the rest are depending on us to win. The weight of that settled over the room like gravity. Jake continued. Every ship has updated tactical packages. You know your roles. You know the stakes. I won't insult you with speeches about duty or honor. You're here. That's enough. He met the eyes of his officers. But I will say this. We fight clean. No war crimes. No atrocities. Even now. Even against enemies who wouldn't grant us the same courtesy. Because that's how we prove we were right all along. That civilization matters. That laws matter. That humanity deserves its place among the stars. They won't fight clean, someone muttered. No, Jake agreed. They won't. Which is exactly why we have to. Questions? There were none. Then get to your ships. We have 16 hours before they arrive. Use them well. The room cleared rapidly. Chen lingered. Jake, this is suicide odds for the first two lines. 30 frigates against almost 400 ships. They'll be torn apart. But if they can delay the remnant fleet even 15 minutes, give us time to position the second line effectively. Those 15 minutes might save millions. Maybe billions. You're asking them to die. I'm asking them to buy time. Some will survive, some won't. That's war, Chen. That's the math. He met her eyes. I don't like it either, but we work with what we have. What about you? Where will you be? First line. The vigilant is fast enough to survive, and if I'm asking people to take those risks, I need to be there with them. That's not tactical. That's emotional. Maybe, but it's also leadership. Jake managed a tired smile. Besides, you'll be with the second line in tactical command. Someone needs to survive to tell this story right. Chen wanted to argue. Didn't. Just saluted and left. Alone in the briefing room, Jake pulled up casualty projections. The models were brutal. First line, 60 to 80% losses. Second line, 40%. Third line, 20 to 30% if the first two lines succeeded in their objectives. Total projected deaths, between 20 and 35,000 personnel. More names for the memorial wall. Jake closed the projection, sat in silence for a long moment. Then he recorded a message, sealed, to be delivered only if he didn't survive the engagement. This is Commander Jake Harris, UEC Fleet Intelligence, recording on February 5th, 2026. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it. That's fine. I accepted those odds. What matters is that Earth survives, that humanity survives, that everything we fought for, justice, law, civilization, survives. To everyone who served, who fought, who died defending those principles, you mattered. Your names will be remembered. Your sacrifice meant something. We didn't start this war, but we ended it. The right way, with honor intact. And if the galaxy remembers anything about humanity, I hope it's this. We kept our word. We warned them. We tried. And when we fought like we had something worth protecting. Because we did. We do. Take care of it. Harris out. He sealed the message, encrypted it, filed it with his personal effects. Then he stood, straightened his uniform, and walked to the bridge. The vigilance crew was already at battle stations, weapons armed, shields charged, jump drives spooled, ready. Status, Jake said, settling into his command chair. All first-line ships report ready, his tactical officer replied. Second line is moving into position. Third line holding at orbital perimeter. Civilian evacuation is at 43%. Remnant fleet is 14 hours out. Jake nodded. Send to all ships. Maintain communications discipline. Stay sharp. Remember your training. And take care of each other out there. Harris out. The next 12 hours were an agony of waiting. Jake reviewed tactical plans, slept for 2 hours, ate because his body needed fuel, answered dozens of messages from Earth Command, allied governments, even neutral species offering support. The Luminar Collective sent a squadron of 15 ships to assist. The message from their commander was simple. Humanity stood with justice. Luminars stand with humanity. Jake was profoundly grateful. 6 hours before contact, he received a personal message from Vel Shara. Commander, my government has granted permission for me to share classified hegemony tactical data. Sending now. It may help. Also, my markings are white. Truth. You will win this. Not because of ships or tactics, because you fight for something they stopped believing in. Good luck. The tactical data was extraordinary. Weaknesses in remnant fleet formations, psychological profiles of their commanders, logistics vulnerabilities. Jake immediately distributed it to all human ships. Every advantage mattered. 3 hours before contact, Earth's evacuation transports completed their final runs. 41 million civilians rescued, 10,959,000,000 remaining. The math was crushing. 1 hour before contact, Jake assembled the first-line commanders via holographic conference. 30 faces, young and old, experienced and green. All volunteers, all aware they were likely flying to their deaths. I'm not gonna lie to you, Jake said quietly. The odds are bad. You're outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Your job is to be annoying, costly, and fast. Hit and run. Disrupt formations, force them to waste ordnance on targets that won't stay still. By 15 minutes. 15 minutes for the second line to position. Then you break contact and fall back. Clear? 30 voices. Clear, Commander. Good hunting. See you on the other side. The conference ended. Jake stared at the tactical display, showing 30 green icons. His first line, arrayed between Earth and an approaching red mass that represented the remnant fleet. Chen's voice came over the comm. Second line is in position. We're ready. Copy that. First line jumping in 60 seconds. Jake's helmsman looked back at him. Young kid. Couldn't be more than 23. Scared, but steady. Commander, it's been an honor serving with you. Jake managed to smile. We're not dead yet, Williams. Let's try to keep it that way. The timer reached 0. 30 human frigates jumped directly into the path of 372 vengeful hegemony warships. The battle for Earth had begun. The first-line engagement was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. Human frigates moved like dancers, never staying still, firing and jumping, reappearing in unexpected vectors. They targeted engines, not command centers. Communications arrays, not weapons. Their goal wasn't to kill, but to blind, slow, disrupt. The remnant fleet responded with overwhelming firepower. Space lit up with plasma fire, missiles, energy weapons. 3 human frigates died in the first 90 seconds. 5 more in the next 2 minutes. But they bought time. Precious minutes. And the remnant fleet's formation began to fragment as ships maneuvered to chase fast-moving targets instead of maintaining assault vectors. Jake's vigilance danced through the chaos. He'd personally trained his pilot on evasive patterns. They were magnificent, anticipating fire, jumping micro-distances, reappearing behind enemy ships to strike critical systems. Second line is engaging, Chen's voice over the comm. We have them. First line, break contact now. 22 frigates remained operational. They jumped out as one, leaving the remnant fleet to face 200 fresh human warships in prepared defensive positions. The second engagement was brutal attrition. Ship-to-ship combat at ranges measured in thousands of kilometers. The human ships fought with coordinated precision, targeting solutions shared instantly across the fleet. Tactics adapting in real time. Officers making split-second decisions that meant life or death for hundreds of crew members. The remnant fleet had numbers and firepower, but they were divided, leaderless, fighting for a government that no longer existed. The human fleet fought for home, for 11 billion people watching from Earth's surface, for every promise they'd made about protecting civilization. The battle raged for 3 hours. 94 human ships were destroyed. The remnant fleet lost 231. When the survivors of the remnant fleet, 141 battered, damaged warships, broke through to face Earth's third defensive line, they found something unexpected. The third line wasn't just human ships. Luminar vessels, Valkorian defenders. Even some hegemony species who'd broken with the old regime. 43 Allied warships, standing alongside 118 human ships. The galaxy had chosen a side, and it wasn't the Remnant. The final engagement lasted 17 minutes. The Remnant fleet, shattered and demoralized, attempted to push through. They failed. 112 ships were destroyed. 29 surrendered. 0 reached Earth's orbit. When the last remnant ship powered down its weapons, Jake sat in his command chair and felt something break inside him. Relief. Exhaustion. Grief for all the names about to be added to the wall. All ships, cease fire, he ordered quietly. Begin search and rescue operations. Prisoners will be treated in accordance with Galactic Convention. Medical teams to assist wounded. Salvage crews to begin debris clearance. Someone, his voice cracked slightly, someone tell Earth they're safe. The comm officer's hands were shaking as she transmitted the all clear. From Earth's surface, from every city on the planet, a roar went up. Celebration, relief, joy. 11 billion voices cheering for the thousands of people who died protecting them. Jake closed his eyes and let himself feel it, just for a moment. They'd won. They'd actually won. Then he opened his eyes and got back to work, because winning was just the beginning. Now came the harder part. Peace. 6 months after the battle for Earth, Jake stood in a conference room on neutral ground, the same station where the War Crimes Tribunal had been held. But this time, the room was full of diplomats, not judges. Representatives from 40 species. The hegemony had formally dissolved. Its member species were negotiating new relationships, new alliances, new structures of power. Jake was there as Earth's chief negotiator, told command he was a military officer, not a diplomat. They'd overruled him. Told him he'd started this, with that first warning, that crystal on the podium, and he needed to finish it. So here he was. The negotiations had been grinding on for weeks. Reparations, territory, trade agreements, security guarantees. Every species wanted something. Every faction had grievances. Progress was measured in millimeters. But they were talking, not fighting. That was progress. Today's session focused on the establishment of a new Galactic Council. Democratic, representative, with robust mechanisms for dispute resolution. No more unilateral enforcement. No more old powers making decisions for everyone. The Krillian delegation, new leadership, the old ones were still in prison, was objecting to human proposals for mandatory arbitration clauses. This level of oversight is unnecessary, their ambassador chittered. It suggests lack of trust. Jake leaned forward. After everything that's happened, you're surprised that trust needs to be rebuilt? We're not suggesting this because we doubt your good intentions. We're suggesting it because good intentions aren't enough. Systems matter. Checks and balances matter. Transparency matters. He pulled up historical data. The old hegemony failed because it assumed age meant wisdom and power meant righteousness. Let's build something better. Something that works even when leaders aren't wise, even when people make mistakes. Velshara, attending as the Luminar Collective's chief analyst, spoke up. Her markings pulsed steady white. Commander Harris is correct. My species spent centuries assuming hegemony structures were adequate. We were wrong. Proposal supports principles all species claim to value. Justice, accountability, mutual defense. Objection appears based on desire to preserve flexibility for future violations. Recommend we adopt proposal as written. The bluntness was classic Velshara. Several delegates looked uncomfortable, but the Luminar Collective had become enormously influential after their support during Earth's defense. Their endorsement carried weight. The vote proceeded. The arbitration measures passed. One more piece of the new framework locked into place. After the session, Jake found Velshara outside the conference room. Her markings cycled through soft colors: contentment, satisfaction. "Thank you for the support," Jake said. "Not support, agreement. There is difference." She cocked her head in the Luminar gesture of curiosity. Question: do you believe this will work? New council, new rules. Sentient beings are still sentient beings, still capable of violence, deception, territorial aggression. Jake considered. "I think it'll work better than what came before. But if we build in enough safeguards, enough transparency, enough mechanisms for addressing grievances before they escalate, maybe we can make wars like this one rare. Maybe we can make them unthinkable." Optimistic assessment. Earned optimism, Jake corrected. "We proved something important in this war. Proved that fighting the right way, with laws, with restraint, with respect for civilian life, isn't weakness. It's strength. It builds alliances. It creates moral authority that survives long after guns stop firing." He paused. The galaxy watched how humanity fought. How we warned, how we tried, how we kept our restraint even when pushed. That matters. That's what lets us sit at this table with credibility. Velshara's markings went white. Truth. My government's internal assessments concluded humanity could have won faster and cheaper through unlimited warfare. Strategic analysis. This choice increased long-term security by factor of 3.6. You were right. Morality is pragmatic. Jake smiled faintly. "Don't let my military commanders hear you say that. They'll think I've been soft this whole time." "You were not soft. You were precise." Velshara's markings flickered with something warm, the Luminar equivalent of affection. Precision is more dangerous than brutality. Enemy can predict brutality, cannot predict precise application of overwhelming force constrained by principle. You made us unable to predict you. That is why we respected you. Still respect you. The respect is mutual, Velshara. You tried to stop your own government from making a catastrophic mistake. That took courage. Irrelevant. Was correct course of action. She paused. Human concept of courage is interesting. Luminars understand duty, not courage. But watching humans fight, watching you lead, we are learning distinction. Perhaps we'll adopt concept. Improve our own decision-making. They walked together through the station corridors. Outside the viewports, stars gleamed peacefully. No battles, no fleets maneuvering for advantage. Just vast silence and light. "What will you do after negotiations conclude?" Velshara asked. "Go home. Take a long vacation. Maybe teach at the academy. Earth's expanding its strategic studies program. They want combat veterans to train the next generation." Jake glanced at her. "You?" "Similar. We'll return to Luminar Prime, resume analytical work, but we'll maintain human contact. Partnership between our species is strategically valuable. Also," her markings flickered, "personally interesting. Humans are complicated, fascinating, would like to understand better." "We're not that complicated." "Incorrect. Humans are capable of extraordinary violence constrained by extraordinary compassion. Can destroy or create with equal facility. Choose creation despite being optimized for destruction. This is complicated." She met his eyes. "Is also hopeful. Galaxy needs complicated species. Needs builders who can fight. Needs fighters who choose building. Humans are this. Is valuable." Jake felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he'd carried for months, years maybe. Thank you for saying that. I think we needed to hear it. Is truth will ensure all Luminar diplomatic communications emphasize this assessment. Other species should understand. Humans are dangerous when provoked, but preferentially peaceful. Optimal strategy is friendship, not confrontation. I'll drink to that. They parted at an intersection. Velshara returned to the Luminar delegation. Jake headed for the human section. He found Chen there, reviewing diplomatic cables. She looked up as he entered. How'd the session go? Better than expected. The arbitration framework passed. We're actually making progress. Good, because I have news. Admiral Kowalski is recommending you for promotion. Admiral, Earth's youngest in history. Congratulations. Jake blinked. I don't want to be an admiral. I want to go home. Teach. I know, she knows. You'll still probably have to accept. Chen smiled. You're a symbol now, Jake. The man who warned them, who fought right, who won clean. Earth needs symbols, especially now when we're building something new. I'm just one person who did his job. No, you're the person who proved humanity belonged at the table, who showed the galaxy that being new doesn't mean being naive, that youth can mean innovation, not ignorance. She stood. Accept the promotion. Use it to make sure this peace lasts. That's how you honor everyone who died in this war, by making sure it was worth it. Jake wanted to argue. Couldn't find the words. I'll think about it. Now, come on. There's a delegation of former hegemony officers here. They want to apologize. Publicly. Thought you should hear it. The ceremony was small, private. 12 former hegemony officers, all of whom had served under commanders now imprisoned or dismissed. They stood before Jake and spoke simply, without deflection. We were wrong. We believed our experience meant superiority. We ignored your warnings. We are responsible for needless deaths on both sides. We cannot undo our actions, but we acknowledge them, and we commit to ensuring future generations understand. Humanity was right. We were not. This truth will be taught in our schools, recorded in our histories, so this never happens again. Jake listened, nodded. I accept your acknowledgement, and I appreciate your commitment to education. That's how we prevent this, by making sure everyone understands what happened here, why it happened, how to stop it from happening again. He paused. The galaxy is changing. We're all learning to see each other differently, as equals, not competitors, as partners, not threats. That's worth fighting for, worth building toward. The ceremony concluded. The officers left. Jake stood alone in the room, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. So many battles, so much death, so many close calls where everything could have gone wrong. But it hadn't. They'd won, the right way, with principles intact. And now the galaxy was rebuilding. Better, more just, more accountable. Maybe that was enough. A message alert chimed. Jake checked it. From Earth, from the Memorial Wall Dedication Committee. They wanted him to speak at the unveiling, where all the names from this war would be permanently carved. 3,247 names. Every one a person, a life, a family left grieving. Jake composed his response carefully. But I want to make something clear. Those people died because their leaders, myself included, couldn't find a way to prevent this war. Yes, we were provoked. Yes, we fought honorably. But 3,000 lives were still lost. That's on all of us. When I speak, I'll honor their sacrifice. But I'll also commit, never again. We'll build something so strong, so just, so resilient, that future conflicts get resolved before they cost lives. That's how we make their deaths mean something. He sent the message, sat back, closed his eyes. And for the first time in months, he let himself believe it was over. Really over. The fighting was done. The justice was served. The peace was building. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest or domination, but through resilience, principle, and the courage to fight only when necessary, and only the way civilization required. They'd warned the galaxy, given every chance. And when war became unavoidable, they'd shown the universe what humanity meant when they said, "We are dangerous when provoked, but we'd rather be friends." The galaxy had learned, and Jake could finally rest. If you made it to the end of this story on HFY Endurance Tales, thank you. Drop a comment sharing what moment hit you hardest. Was it the final warning, the battle, or the aftermath? Share this with anyone who needs to understand why principle matters more than power. Because humanity just proved, you can win and keep your soul. You can fight and stay civilized. You can be dangerous and still be good. That's not weakness. That's strength. And that's the future worth building.